This podcast contains real stories, adult language, and occasional chaos. Some content may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised, especially if you're easily offended, overly nostalgic, or still living in a dorm.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Dorm Disorder Podcast. Before we get started, let's not forget, forward this along to other people, like, and most of all, subscribe. That's really the thing that's going to help us keep this thing moving. And of course, it's going to notify you when we drop these, where we're planning on doing this every Wednesday, at least to the beginning of summer or through the end of summer. So please follow along and join this journey in this community. I'm your host, Mike. And we have our other host,
Dan Glorious, 9-4.
and we are absolutely thrilled to have George Karpyn, one of our most beloved teachers of Girard, here today to share some of his stories and tell us maybe some things that we didn't know. So, George, you had a few things you wanted to start off with?
I'd like to say thank you for having me. I really do appreciate this. And I do hope that this podcast goes as you have planned and keeps growing, because I think it's about time that Girard has joined the streaming services of modern times. Before we get into anything else, I want to first of all mention a remembrance for Gil Bunker, who just passed away. Quite a character, but he was Girard all the way. He wore garnet and silver tie and shirt combinations. And in 2008, when the economy crashed, the Hummers went on sale. He went out and bought a Hummer so he could say, I have a Hummer. That was Girard's name at that time. He was quite the character, but his legacy is, if you've never been there, many Girard students have been in the museum, but if you go up there, those two rooms that he collected, all of the pictures, the clothes, it's phenomenal. Wow. I used to take classes there, and they listen to the Girard stuff, but then they want to run in there and get all of the pictures and maybe find themselves and all of the even muds, and they were all there. So also shout out to the Tillinghast family. One of the Tillinghast passed away. There were a number of Tillinghasts at Girard. Unfortunately, I just forgot his name. And also, I want to say a nice thing about Mrs. Swords. She had 4 boys at Girard. She passed away recently at 100 or 101.
Wow.
She was one of the mothers, and all of us teachers knew she was one of the mothers that came every single parent conferences.
Wow.
And when she couldn't make it, she would call with the office and set up an appointment so she could come and talk to us. And I had 2 of the sons that I remember teaching, and I still am in touch with both of them, Michael and Patrick.
Yeah.
So she was one of those moms, and I, like to extend our condolences to the Swords family, because that was special. That was special.
Till our hearts be still.
We built a community here just by going to Girard, where we become something bigger than just the campus itself. We are truly a family. Not only, we're a horrible family when we're in those walls, but we become, it's just like any family. You grow older and you really appreciate a lot of the people that we've had the opportunity to be around. So thank you so much for bringing that up to us.
And I echo that, because one time I went to National Mechanics and there was a kid, the class was a pain in my ass. And I said, boy, you guys were bad. And he goes, oh, Mr. K, we was just kids. That was his explanation. And they all friend me on Facebook. Yeah. I didn't have to even go after them. So I do believe it's a family, and it's a special place. There's no doubt about it. And there were times I was mad as hell working at Girard, but it still is a lot of great memories. And I'm really proud that I lasted 36 years.
I'm proud that you lasted 36 years. That's 36
4 years
shorts.
as in RA, I was a section officer. I had Section 8 and then Section 11 on the West Wing. And it was an experience. I came from a Catholic boarding school, so being at Girard was like being home in a sense, except I didn't like how some of the kids talked to me. I had to really straighten that out fast too, because we couldn't do that. But we had dorm disorder, which is, I think, a wonderful name, because we had toilet paper fights.
Oh,
Okay,
interesting.
between juniors and seniors, and we used to put off the lights, and there was also a water closet you can go where you get your mop and clean up and all that. And whoever got there first got the advantage. You can attack it from behind and whatever. Unfortunately, one day, the disciplinarian came up because he heard racket, and somebody turned around and threw a wet toilet paper, hit him right in the forehead, which will happen if you have enough toilet paper fights.
That's one of our first stories.
And the water kept dripping down his nose. He picked it up, threw it in the kid's face, and says, "Oh, you will suffer."
Oh,
And you know what he made us do? He made us walk around the flagpole from 3:30 in the courtyard to 5:45 without saying anything. You couldn't read anything. You couldn't talk. You couldn't do nothing for 2 hours and 15 minutes. And he would peek. You could see him peek through the curtains from his high school perch. And then he would send the kid that we all couldn't stand, a ninth grader with a high-pitched voice, to remind us it's time for dinner. He'd rub it right in, you know. So I understand, but I have to say, we had dorm disorder, but at Girard, dorm disorder on steroids. It was unbelievable. As a matter of fact, we never heard from the staff. We always went right to the kids. That's how we got to know what really went on. And I remember I had two girls. I don't know how long they would come. They came every day for breakfast. They would leave breakfast after they ate real fast. And a lot of times they beat me to my classroom and they would wait for me. And the first thing they would say, "Oh boy, you should have seen that. All right, what happened?" And then, so I was like the privy right from the start. So one day I pranked them. I sat, you know, where that flagpole, and there was that big bush.
Yeah.
Well, I parked my car there, and I waited for them to hit the crosswalk coming from the courtyard to the high school.
yes.
And then I gunned it, and they weren't expecting it. And then at the last minute, I honked, and you should have saw them jump at me. Oh, it's crazy. and they were screaming at me, and I'm laughing. Of course, when I got up, boy, they really tore it. They were just, but that's when I learned, because none of the administrators told us what happened unless they really had to. So
Right.
I started off in the dorms as a section officer. We didn't call ourselves RAs then. We were house parents and section officers. And I had Section 8, and I had 16 kids. And of course, everybody had night duty and all of that stuff. And I have to get back to you on the shower thing. The first year or so, I had to stand and watch because I didn't know any better. But after that, I told the kids, you do what you have to. Pick up the soap quietly. I'll leave the TV on. I want to go and relax. And by that time I was smoking. I wanted to get a smoke, put my feet up, get a glass of water or wine, whatever the case is. And after a while, the kids did that. I didn't have any problem with that. But yes, none of the kids enjoyed that.
No, definitely was Dan's least favorite thing.
Yes. We're watching the episode 0, and my wife's watching it, Jill. And she goes, "Hey, you really don't like the showers. It's about the third time you brought that up." I said, "Yeah, I guess.
In
I guess I
boarding
had a problem with
school,
it."
in boarding school, you know everybody's habit. Okay, we had a guy in his senior year, exactly 10:10, he would go to the bathroom every single day for his constitutional. And he shuffled. So everybody knew where he was
You could
going.
hear him going.
You know, that's the way he was. So yeah, you can't make that stuff up.
No.
You know, you see all kinds of stuff. But yeah, so I left school a little early in April of '74.
Okay.
And my father and I were at odds at my decision. I want to get into that. And I said, I gotta do this. First thing I gotta do is get a job, learn how to drive, because I did not know how to drive. I was 23 years old, and I want to get a car, and I want to get my own place,
Okay.
move out of the house. And that was my goal. So Girard has always been where I lived. As soon as I walked out of the house, looked to the right, I saw the armory. Okay. So, and plus there were a lot of Ukrainian ladies that worked in DNS, laundry, housekeeping.
Yep.
So there were a lot of Ukrainians. So one of them, my favorite, she was a seamstress at junior school. So she came to me and said, you know what? They're looking for someone to work in maintenance and housekeeping. Why don't you start there? And then maybe something will open up and you could then fill in those spots, like
Okay.
house parent or teacher or whatever. And I said, well, that's a good idea. So I became a Johnny.
Oh, I did not know.
Yeah.
Do you know what the Johnnies were? Is that what they
Johnny
called
on
them?
the spot, right?
No, they were. It was basically a hat. Now she tried to give me different jobs where I could use my noodle, but she said you're going to have to mop the floors and do all of that. And I said, whenever I need you. And I said, okay. Hey, listen, I went to high school where we didn't have janitors, we
Right.
didn't have cleaners. We did everything by ourselves, so I knew how to. So Mrs. Reyna was the supervisor, and she was sweet. She was tough. She was very demanding, but she gave me a lot of room. And so one day, I was in charge of the West Wing basement.
Mhm.
There was that big, when you come from the playground,
Yep.
that big bathroom,
Yes.
and then with the sinks down the hall. So that was my job. So one day I cleaned the bathroom. I left my mop there and I wanted to check the bathroom. So I go in there and I look at the sinks. It looks really good. I didn't really have to do much. So I come out, my mop is gone. You know, I know who it is. Okay. There's some kids, and all of a sudden I come to the corner, and all of a sudden I turn to my right. They're ready to run, but they wanted to catch my attention.
Yeah.
And one of the guys, big guy, and all the little guys behind him, and they're laughing. And they hid it behind a door or something. So I chased them, and they, of course, run over. So it was nothing. I continued my work. And then one day, I'm working down there, and I hear voices. I hear the door slam, and you know, kids come in, they start cursing and all that stuff. And I said, here's my revenge. They all go into the bathroom. I walk in the bathroom with the mop. Anybody want a mop today? And all of a sudden they're like, and I didn't want to do anything. So I let them kind of sneak out the door, and they were running like hell. Then I took it and I whipped that mop, and it hit, splat, and picked up splat. And of course they're running like crazy to get out of there. As it turns out, the big guy, he winds up in my Section 8. He didn't know this. All of a sudden, he comes in with his mom and says, "Oh, I'm Mrs. So-and-so. Oh, yeah, I've met your son." And he's like, "Oh." Of course, it was all in fun. But
Yeah, of course.
That's how I got inducted into Girard. And then one day, Mrs. Reyna came to me and said, "Mr. Karpyn, Mr. Wyatt has room for a house parent section officer. I recommended you. If you're interested, stop by his office today after work." And I said, "Sure." So I go in there. Of course, Jim Wyatt's office, books over here, boxes over there,
Yeah.
clothes all over the place. So we're talking, and things are going well. And then he goes, "The kids don't want a goody-tootie." they want a CAD. Like he said, CAD. And I said, you mean I could be myself and get paid for it? And he said, yes, indeed. And next day he calls me in and said, you got the job.
Outstanding.
That's great.
So I started to move in, got out of the house as quick as I could and moved in, but I still didn't have the car. And when we started working, my neighbor had a car and I used his car to do my tests. I passed. Then my father and my brother and I went and we bought the Dodge Dart Coupe.
Nice. Okay.
74 Dodge. It was my first, and I loved that car to death.
That didn't explode on rear impact, did it?
No. Actually, it did get hit, but it didn't explode many years later. But it was so funny. The kids back then, Girard, it was if you wanted to go off campus, you didn't have to make special plans. You know, I'd call up and say, "Is the van available?" And they say, "Yeah." What do you need? A couple hours. Okay, sure. Come up, get it. And then I'd follow kids, or I would say to the executive on duty or Jim White, can I take the kids off campus for some ice cream? He says, sure, go ahead. I'd pile them into the Dodge Dart. You know, like on weekends, I had like 7 or 8 kids, you know, and they loved it. I used to take them to Memorial Hall, where they have the whispering benches. Have you ever been there? Mm-hmm. Well, when I introduced them to that, the kids they weren't sure. They thought I was lying to them. So one kid goes out, is this effing work? And I said, I heard that. I was on the other side. So then we'd stop and get some ice cream, whatever. We had a great time. But the one thing they all loved, I don't know why, that road that goes behind DNS.
Yes.
Between Founders Hall and there, and then the wall, then you go behind DNS and then come out the other side. Yeah. Well, the kids say, come on, take us there. So I as soon as I got on the road, I gunned it. And then as soon as we came to the wall, I'd stop, not slow down, make that quick turn because I had a good car. And the kids go, ah! And then we get to the other side and they say, let's do it again. I said, no, it's time to eat dinner, man.
Turned you into a roller coaster.
They just loved it. That was one of the highlights. So that car served me right. It was our baby. So it was really fun. It was really fun. But it took me a while to get used to the scheduling and being on duty so much. Yeah. And Jim Wyatt kind of trusted me, so I did a lot of extra work for him and stuff. If somebody was out sick, if I could cover and all of that. But I probably in the long run, that's what, after 4 years, I was a little burned out. Yeah. But it was fun. I got to know the kids. I used to go and mostly every day meet them after school, then ask the teachers, Mr. Rothfuss, Miss Beard, how my kids are doing. Oh, somebody didn't do any homework. Call them over. He'll have a homework for you tomorrow. Okay, that's good. You know, it was like I was there. I was the daddy. That's how I took my job.
Do you think it was benefit because a lot of the teachers are just teachers. There's very few, that I can think of that had both the RA side of Girard and the teaching side. Did you think that better prepared you to be a teacher at Girard?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because you knew the layout. You knew what was happening in section. You knew that kids would come late or, the excuses the kids would have. There was always one kid that liked to eat breakfast longer than everybody else. Right, okay. It's all part of the game, Mm-hmm. And I remember the story when Eddie Gallagher was our disciplinary assistant principal.
Gallagher, our disciplinary.
When I was when I was teaching, he was the best thing we had. Anyway, I was in his office and 3 girls come in and I was ready to leave. He said, no, stay here. 3 girls took 20 minutes to get from the library to the high school. Oh my God. So he looks at 20 minutes. I time myself. I get at the lodge. I'm down at the Army in 4 or 5 minutes. Yeah. It took you 20 minutes? What took you so long? So they put their heads down and they said, I'll see you Friday after school. They leave and I says, where'd you get that 3 minutes? 3 minutes. He says, I just made that up. And the kids bought it because they knew he was there.
Right,
You know,
right.
once you're there, the kids buy it a lot. Don't forget fish, cod, they're all.
Spent time in his house parents as well.
Yeah, I think Fish went right from merchant or whatever he was, Bordeaux, right to teaching.
Okay.
You know,
Well,
I had a 4-year break between.
I found something interesting out, Mr. Fisher. His wife was also an RA. I know it wasn't called
wow.
RA at the time, but I got to spend some time with her. I think 2 Founders Days ago, I sat down at the table with Fisher and
Oh
his
yeah, it was
wife,
about, yep.
and we
Bridget,
actually
yeah.
sat down and she told us, "Oh yeah, I used to work here. That's how I met Rob," and it was just kind of went from
Wow.
there. So yeah, it was kind of interesting. So
Well,
yeah.
actually, because of Girard, I met my first wife. I had a kid. He was a really good kid, good athlete. His sister used to come along. She lived out in Delaware County. And so one day she invited me to their place in Prospect Park. I came out, and my future first wife was friends with them. She came over, and we kind of hit it off. And then the next time that the sister was coming, Cindy was coming to Girard for a soccer game, she brought Noreen.
Okay.
And all of a sudden, eventually she would come just to see me and all of that stuff. So that's how that thing worked out. The marriage didn't work out, but it was a good start, you know. It was a good start, you know. So yeah, it was kind of interesting. Some of the stuff. One of my favorite stories. I didn't go to the high school as often for when they went to 7th and 8th middle school. We had the same group from 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th.
oh wow,
It was a rare thing.
Right.
It is.
We insisted upon the people that were there. So we had the same kids. There were maybe a new kid would come in once in a while,
course,
but
yeah.
generally it was the same group. So I went to the high school just to check things out. Went from teacher to teacher. I got mixed reviews. And then I went to English class. And Miss Frank,
Miss Frank.
she said, 4 of your students are not coming to class. And I said, what? Why didn't you tell me? Give me a call. He says, actually, it's been really nice since they've not been coming to class because I could teach because they were disrupted. I said, you got to tell me this. So I said, okay. I left. I was really befuddled. I was kind of a little pissed at her
Right.
because she didn't tell me. So I go to my source. I don't call him a snitch. He was my source. Okay, he was a good kid. He really was. So I come and says, where are they going? He said, they're going to the old infirmary in the bottom of junior school, basement of junior school,
Interesting.
across the hallway from the auditorium.
Yeah.
And what are they doing there? They're going there to smoke.
Ah.
And they're 7th graders. I said, damn. So I said, okay, what time's your English class tomorrow? He gives me the time. So I go down there. I'm there about 5-10 minutes sooner. And I'm waiting. They had those big poles in the middle, those concrete.
Yeah.
And I hid behind them. And all of a sudden, the door opens up from the street, you know, and they come in, and all of a sudden, everything's MF and this and F and that and all of that. And because they're four kids, you know?
Right.
And 3 of them were black, 1 was white. And I only say that for the for the ending. Anyway, they come in and they put cigarettes in their mouth, and one says, "Where's the effing lighter or matches?" And that was my cue. I come out from behind the pole, light it, and said, "Gents need a light? You want to see black kids turn white? That was the time. That was the time to see it." They were pale as ghosts, you know. And I said, "All right, cigarettes." They all put them back in, gave me the cigarettes, and I said, "Salem is not a cigarette.
It's not.
Marble. That's what I smelled." And I put it in my pocket.
Newports.
And I said to them, "I will see you later in section." That used to kill me when my dad would say that. "I'll see you later." That didn't mean good. And oddly enough, I never punished him for it. but whenever I needed a volunteer or somebody needed a volunteer, Mr. Wyatt would call and say, I need some help. Can you send some kids over? I got 4 for you right now. And they would go willingly, and this went on for a long time. So a couple weeks later, the principal comes to me, and he knew that I was a strict daddy. He says, well, you must have whipped their fannies because they're as angels. Homeworks are done, everything. I said, I never touched them. And he said, no, I can't believe that. But I never did. And the rest of the year, they were sweet as pie.
Nice.
One of my favorite stories. I had such a laugh out of that.
We had to be very creative to cut school in Girard because
Yeah,
there was
especially during the
people
daytime.
all
Yeah.
over the place.
Yeah, there weren't a lot of places to go.
there was not.
And to go from like the middle school down all the way down to the junior school, that was a risk in itself. You
Yes,
know,
it was.
It's not like you could go anywhere off campus. So
There's constantly maintenance walking around. There's constant people looking around. I mean, the infirmary, I think, was probably down there at that point. So
Right.
if somebody had stopped me, you could say,
Yeah.
I'm going to the infirmary. But
One time, 2 ninth graders, 2 Asian ninth graders,
okay,
cut my class. Okay.
How
So I
dare they.
immediately,
your
how
class.
how stupid,
Yeah.
So I go to I guess Bill Stein was the principal, and I said, Bill, these 2 are missing. He calls residential. They said, oh, we found them hiding under the bed.
It's like, where are you gonna
Oh
go?
man! So I had them stay after school and do the work that they missed in class.
Good.
And then one year, the seniors on cut down day, nobody planned anything. Might have been no, well, I don't know if it was 94.
we never did anything.
They
Angels.
cut classes after second period, walked down the middle of the street bouncing basketballs. So third
I think
period,
that's like way before you guys even.
third period, all of that class, senior class, had Leek and myself. And Leek and I walk to the office. Where are they? Of course, they caught them. Of course, they had to spend the weekend for it and all that. I told them, like, why would you cut Karpyn and Leek
Right.
of all people?
Like, you always did that with like the new teachers that didn't know no better or didn't know how to like really like get you jacked up for doing something like that.
If we found out there was a substitute, we'd look in and be like, yep, I ain't going to that class today.
Game on if you did. Like it was
There'd be
just
like 4
whatever.
people in the classroom. The 4 people that,
They'd be like, oh, that person's
that
at
took
such and
school
such.
seriously.
Yeah,
I got to pass.
They had to
you
go
know.
to do the thing.
So yeah, that was so stupid. And then 2 of the seniors came in and sat down and said, Mr. Karpyn, my classmates are very stupid. And I said, I've noticed that. And he says, they're cutting your class and Mr. Lee's class. How stupid can that be?
Yeah,
And it
that's
was-
not too bright.
No, it's not. And of course, they all got shuttled into a room, and it was crazy.
Now, how did you go from a section officer to teaching?
Well, I left in 78. I moved in with
First wife.
your first wife, and I lived out there, and I have to say, suburbs are not for me. Okay. No, we had a pretty good relationship, but then things happened. I lost the job and things, there's a lot of things that went
Yep.
into it, So I finally I went to graduation. 1982 was the kids that I had. They were graduating. Okay. There were, out of the 60 that started, only 18 graduated.
The normal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of normal.
Yeah.
So I came there, and I haven't seen them since I left when they were 8th grade.
Mhm.
So 4 years went by. When they saw me, of course, some of them changed. I couldn't even recognize some
Yeah.
of them. And we had a good time. So I was talking, and somebody said, you know what? There's a job opening in the high school. So I went to the director of ed at the time, and I said, I would like to apply. He said, well, listen, here's, the numbers. Give me a call. We'll set up an appointment and go from there. And I showed up. Unbeknownst to me, Jim Wyant and other people on campus went to him and said,
No,
he's
that's your guy.
He's a keeper. Go for it. Okay. Hire him. And all of a sudden, after the interview, got a call. You're hired. You're starting in September. And then what happened in September?
Go and
Strike.
strike.
I was literally, as soon as you said I went to 82's graduation, I'm like, strike.
Right.
Strike
And
is
then,
coming up.
and then, of course, my wife said, "Oh, Jesus! All this time you've been out, you finally got the job, and then
you're
all
out
of a
again.
sudden you're out." You know. So I did subbing, and there are two schools that I went to that I would not go to again: Sharon Hill High
Uh-huh.
and Swarthmore High. It's no longer Swarthmore; it merged into Nether Providence or Strathaven or whatever it
Okay.
is. I said, "Don't send me there." One was because one side of the economic spectrum, and Swarthmore High was the,
The
other
other
side,
Yeah,
and
they
they
were.
were even
Yeah.
worse.
Yeah, I can
They
believe
were
it.
arrogant, snoot. So I went to Upper Darby a lot, a
Okay.
sub, because I lived in Holmes.
Okay.
Quick ride, and like right after I started, one of the social studies teachers went on a month absence because of some illness or whatever. And they said, "Would you like to be social studies teacher for a month?" Ta-da!
Yep.
So I just went into it, and and come February, we started second semester, we started teaching. So some of the people that I wanted to teach, they were not going to be in my classes.
Right.
And it just kept going, and then I just stayed for 32 years after that.
Wow.
So you mentioned Jim Wyatt quite a few times, and as we were getting ready to do this show, you told us a pretty awesome story that highlights how fast a 5 foot tall man can run.
Well, he was a little bit bigger than 5 foot. Listen, I have
5'2".
I have the utmost respect for Jim, not only because he hired me. I saw how he worked the kids. Yes, I know kids who can't stand him. I talked to some alums who hate him with a passion.
They earned it probably.
Even 40 years later, they still can't stand him, you know? But he was so fast, and he trusted me. We had a kid that was missing. I wasn't even on duty.
Uh-huh.
Kid was missing from his bed. He was in my section.
Uh-huh.
And he was known to stray.
Okay.
And I don't want to get into why, but that's another story. So I just come from a date. I'm 2:30 in the morning.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So I said, I checked every bathroom, every room among the 4 dorms.
Mhm.
I knew everyone well. So I called Jim at 2:45 in the morning. Jim did not hesitate. He didn't even ask me if you checked, but he knew I did. He came up and we start looking. And we found him in the junior school on the 2nd floor.
Mm.
So that's how much that we worked together.
Right.
We really. So one day, it was a beautiful day. We're outside junior school, right on the main steps.
Mhm.
And this kid comes running, crying and screaming. And he said, "Tracy fell from the armory." And we're thinking, on the outside, there's that little lip
Yeah.
or edge. Okay, no more than 6 inches. He got on there on the west side, and he started to walk, and he fell, and right on the concrete, not on the grass, on the concrete.
It's like
below.
good 20 feet.
Jesus.
At least.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So I said, "Jim, I'm getting the car," and Jim bolted. Wyatt was moving. It was French fry day, but it wasn't French fry day. And he bolted, and I looked, so I got in the car, was across the street, made the quick U-turn, and boom, shoot down there. By the time I got to the armory in my car, he had Tracy in his hands. I opened the door for him. He slid right in, put him on his lap. We went to the infirmary because somehow some kid went to the infirmary to tell the Miss
Nurses.
Hartwell.
Yeah.
And she came out with ice. Yeah, it's another story.
Yeah, Miss Hartwell.
With ice and towels. And we got in, and I said, "Do you want me to hail down cops while I'm driving?" "No, go for it." So we came out. We went to the red light at Girard. No cars got, boom, gone. And we just went, and all of a sudden, I knew the streets were at Chinatown,
Mhm.
and all of a sudden, no cars, gone. You know, I must have hit that Jeff ER in maybe 10 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow.
And we pulled in. He says, "All right, go back. tell the executive on duty, you're in charge at the junior school. So I let people know if they had any problems to come to see me in Section 8. And the kid not only survived, he came back to Girard, and it was a pain in the ass like it was before. It was just unbelievable. You think that a drop like that would knock
Get
some
you right.
sense into his head? No, it did not. So one day I saw him and said, I went back there and I saw the concrete. I think you put a crack on the concrete. He said, you laughing at me? So yeah, that was, I've never seen anybody run that fast. I just couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe it.
Any French fry stories?
It's not a French fry story, but as soon as we were talking about how fast wine was, because this was years later, it was the day before Founders Day. It was a Friday before Founders Day. And Jim had spent all day with some students setting up chairs right outside the junior school where the band was going to play the next day for Founders Day. Me and a couple of my classmates, I had gone on the town pass, and I got, 3, 4, maybe 5 40s. Met them at the back gate behind the library, slid my 40s in, and then walked in the gate because security knew who I was and would go through my bag to make sure I didn't have any alcohol or drugs in my bag. And we went in my room and we drank a little bit, and then we started to walk down because there was a concert at Founders Hall. And we're walking up to those chairs, feeling good. And I looked at my classmates. I said, I'm going to run through those chairs with my hands spread and just knock these chairs down. Jim Wyatt was nowhere to be found. When I tell you nowhere to be found, he was nowhere in sight. I run through, I knocked down like about 15 or 20 chairs. And now I'm hauling it down the main road.
Yeah.
Hauling it. Jim Wyatt's right behind me. Like literally, hey bud, did you knock those chairs down? I said, what chairs? He goes, the chairs in front of the junior school, did you knock them down? And me and my 2 classmates like, nah, but I'll come help you pick them up. That's fine. Next 20 minutes, I'm setting the 40 chairs I just knocked down.
His office was right there.
I'm sure he looked out the window when he saw it.
Yeah, the man was quick. I don't understand how that man got so fast. It befuddles me how he wasn't the track coach.
He's like breathing in my ear, like right behind him.
Did you ever go to his place on the West End?
No.
Well, there was nobody else in the West End. Parts of it were already falling apart, but they had a big apartment. But I always think his wife Joanne really wanted her own house or a big apartment. Yeah. They eventually moved to a bigger place, and when they knocked down because it was getting to be too old. But he used to invite some of the other house parents, section officers, and we'd go down and play Risk.
Okay.
And Jim was real good at Risk. He really was. So I have nothing bad to say about Jim. Now, some of his jokes, another story. And I remember this kid was giving me a hard time. He says, I'm talking to you. You're not listening. I'm going to send you to Mr. Wyatt, but I'm going to call him and tell him to use every joke he knows on you. And he said, Mr. Karpyn, please don't do it. Please don't do it. I'll be good from now on. Don't send me there. Because he would tell him these, what did the 2 grapes say to each other? And I don't know. They didn't say anything. They just whined. And he would do these jokes over and over. And like the kids would wrap their hair. So that was my start in junior school. I loved the building, by the way. I really did. And a lot of times it didn't matter if it was kids from other sections or not. If I saw that I needed to talk to them, we talked.
Yeah.
So one day, I'm still in touch with this kid. He comes back from the summer with a shirt that has a middle finger right on front. Okay. And he thinks this is good. And not only that, he's walking around with this big grin. And I said, ho, 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 ho. Come here, kid. I don't want to use his name. Come here. So he says, what's the matter? I says, well, I'm going to tell you, you have 2 options. You can go upstairs, take off that shirt, put it away, and never, ever bring it back.
Right.
Or I'm going to rip it right off your body. And he looks at me, but I said, no, 2 choices. There's no buts here.
No buts.
And so he stares at me for what seemed like a long time, but it was like 10, 15 seconds. And he just mopes all the way up to the third floor, got his stuff, and all the way back down. And so his mother comes on Sunday to bring him back. And I mentioned that story. He said, he brought that shirt.
Oh.
You'll never see that shirt again. I says, I already told him I won't see that shirt again. So, you know, there were little things like that. And I had Section 8 and it was Section 7. I don't want to use her name, but she was a little too rigid for myself. And she was always complaining to Jim Wyatt that I was doing all these things with the kids that she couldn't do because she wasn't an athlete or she didn't have a car or whatever. And he says, I can't stop him from doing stuff, you know? So whenever I had 7th and 8th grade kids for the weekend, I would take both. So my best thing is I was a teacher back then. I brought in a board to my section and I would work with things. I would bring in a high school student who knew math, because that's not my forte, to help the kids. And then I would help them with other things, like English, social studies, whatever. And then we study in the afternoon. We go to dinner. And then after dinner, I take them to the armory. We play football, basketball. And then I take them to the small pool instead of showering. And then they come in. They were so exhausted. I'd say, you can watch some TV. They're all snoring with the you know, because I just wiped them out. And I was 23, 24, 25 years old at the time. I had all this energy.
Yeah.
And after I was done, I'd go out, you know.
Yeah.
So I just tried to work him to death. And it was so funny. They had showers at both pools. But I don't have a lifeguard. I'm not a good swimmer, so I wouldn't even dare take him there. Just a small pool. The kids would just take off their clothes, throw it in the locker, run through the shower naked, and right into the pool.
There you go.
And it was so common. It was nothing unusual.
No, Dan speaks on this often.
And it was just the way it was, you know. Now, when the girls came,
right.
well, also I noticed when there was this, and again, it's not a racial thing, but I did notice when the black kids come in, they were not so apt to just. We had a few black kids, but when the majority, they were not happy with running through the showers naked and jumping in the pool.
I can attest. I was not happy.
Yeah.
That's just the way. So we also had water polo evenings. We would have section against section. We'd have football games. We would have base, whatever it was. I tried to engage the kids as much as possible because I find there are two things that people get in trouble. That they're just kids who are nasty or evil or like to get in trouble, or they're bored.
Yeah.
And the bored ones always manage to get themselves caught doing something stupid because they didn't have anything else to do.
Yeah, right.
So I said, keep them occupied.
This concludes part 1 of this episode. Please stay tuned next week for the conclusion.
Dorm disorder on steroids.